Well, with more on the end of this spring sitting for Parliament, we're now joined by our esteemed journalists, Tonda MacCharles, the Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, Joël-Denis Bellavance, the Ottawa Bureau Chief for La Presse, and Robert Fife, back from an absence, the Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail. Hello to the three of you.
Good to see you.
Hey. So listen, as we end this sitting, I want to begin here with the poll numbers because, you know, the latest numbers from Abacus data says Conservatives have essentially been able to build up on their lead. We have it on the board for people here. Conservatives now sitting at 42% support, 20 points ahead of the Liberals, 23 points ahead of the NDP. You know, quite frankly, Liberals were hoping to close the gap, not all at once, but incrementally as we approach summer. That's not what's happened here. In fact, the gap has gotten bigger. How disappointing, how bad is that for the government, Bob?
It's very bad for the government because they had a game plan that was coming out of the budget that they were hoping, and a new campaign on social media featuring the Prime Minister that they hope to chip away 5 points a month on the Conservative support, and that has not happened. If anything, Conservative support has gone up. And I think they've hurt themselves in a budget that didn't really resonate with people, and then they got wrapped up into this capital gains tax that has really annoyed a lot of people. And then you've had the whole issue of Israel and a rise of anti-Semitism, and the government's been caught into a lot of that. And then the whole issue of federal contracting and the RCMP investigations and current and former members of Parliament who may be, pawns of hostile foreign governments like China and India. All of these things have piled up, not helping the government at all. And I just don't see a way out of this, even though Mr. Trudeau is out there all the time. I think another reason is that aside from all these issues, people don't want to listen to him anymore and are not listening to him anymore. And I think that's a major problem for them.
Okay. Tonda, what do you think?
That's the lowest number for the Liberals since 2015, and I think, you know, as much as all of us think that there are warning signs there for the government that they seem not to be heeding, still when I've talked to Liberals, even today on the last day of this sitting, they seem not to be thinking that's the red alarm going off. There's not yet an active discussion that people will share either publicly or privately about Mr. Trudeau's future as the Liberal leader, but leading a party with those kinds of numbers, that's got to be worrying a lot of them. And I'm not sure we've seen the end of, you know, the number of MPs who may not run again next year. I guess, you know, a lot of things will, I think, pivot, not so much that the by-election on Monday in Toronto St. Paul's will change or be a decider for the Prime Minister, but I think it might start conversations internally in caucus and cabinet that will spill out more publicly than we've seen to date.
Mm-hmm. You know, we'll pick up on that by-election in a moment, but Joël-Denis, how bad is it right now that the Liberals have not been able to close the gap at all since this spring sitting began?
It must be disappointing because that was the plan, to be able to reduce the gap between them and the Conservative Party. And as Bob pointed out, I think people are not listening to the messenger-in-chief, who is Justin Trudeau. He's the leader of the Liberal Party. And I think Mr. Trudeau is now suffering from something that he, I think, underestimated: overexposure during the COVID years, overexposure during other crises. And so people, when they see him now, they're basically blocking their ears and not listening to the message anymore. So it's a problem for a party when the messenger-in-chief is the problem. So you've got to make some changes at the top, otherwise you are just heading for a very, very difficult period of time.
It is very much a challenge for all incumbent political leaders right now around the globe. Mm-hmm. To that extent, you know, the Liberals are right. All governments are facing big challenges to stay on or to be re-elected, and we're seeing that play out in Europe right now. But that doesn't make it, though, any less of a threat to a government who's contending under this leader for a fourth mandate. And so I haven't heard yet the narrative that's going to take them there, and I didn't hear it today as we head into barbecue circuit.
Yeah, and yet, as you say, the Prime Minister continues to say that he's going to be fighting another election. You know, you mentioned the by-election on Monday in Toronto St. Paul's. Fortress Toronto, Liberal stronghold. How important is that election? What will even a narrow victory mean for the party and the discussions inside?
Well, first of all, if the Liberals lose that riding, that is a five-alarm fire for them. And I think you're going to start to see members of Parliament saying, look, if we lose a riding like that, what's happened to me when I'm in a competitive riding? You might begin to start people publicly saying it's time for the Prime Minister to go. Now, we don't know whether that's going to happen, but just let's go with your scenario that they win by only a slight margin, which might actually be...
Which I pulled out of air, I'm just saying.
but even then, that's going to have people saying, look, we've had a long-time Liberal incumbent, Carolyn Bennett, who's won by, I think, something like 35%, or 35% consistently. And if it's a very low one, again, that's going to have people very, very nervous. Now, the Prime Minister is going to take a win. If he gets a win, he's going to be able to say, I can stay on, I've won this riding. But if he doesn't, and he loses that riding, boy, what's he going to say then? Because Tonda is going to be on him, Joël is going to be on him, and both official languages saying, why are you staying?
I'm told today, even today though, when I talk to Liberals about what their expectations are around Monday's by-election, they say that it's just a conversation among us journalists and the pollsters, and that is not a conversation they are having in behind closed doors in their caucus. And I honestly don't know what to say to that. I mean, if you're not having that conversation, why not?
Well, we were at an event last night, and the conversation was being had.
That's all the conversation.
That's
what anybody's talking
exactly.
about.
So you can deny it, but the conversations are happening. And Joël-Denis, how important is
there will be
this?
more tests like this by-election in Montreal. There is the riding of former Justice Minister David Lemaitre that is open. The Liberals have had, I'm told, some problems recruiting candidates. That would be the consensus candidate in that riding. They were looking for a francophone or an anglophone, and there was some battle between within the ranks. But that will be another test that is very important in Montreal, because that's where...
It's Paul Martin's old riding.
Exactly.
Let's say it's Paul Martin's old riding,
only
and
that,
they can't get a candidate.
Yeah, and not only that, but Quebec is seen as, the remaining bastion of the Liberal fortress, and besides Toronto. But if that falls into the hands of another political party, that's 10 fire alarms.
Well, and the last polling we saw on that was that the Conservatives are now essentially statistically tied with Conservatives in the province of Quebec.
Which is really that's so unusual to see that sort of happen, not since the Maroney days.
The more important question in Quebec is always the Francophone vote, right? And so the numbers we've seen don't actually reflect, that tie doesn't reflect the Francophone split.
No, exactly. But breaking news for you, Pierre Poilievre will be in Montreal tonight for a rally, and then he goes on to a tour in Quebec regions in Winnebago to try, with his family, to try to seduce more Quebec voters. And he's going to regions where the Conservatives think they can win Bloc Québécois ridings, but also elsewhere. So it's, they haven't given up, the Conservative Party in Quebec. So that means that
it
you got to watch
they're actually more emboldened, quite frankly,
exactly.
if you say it like that.
That's smart strategy.
Okay, listen,
to people.
Quickly running out of time then, but here we have the spring sitting is done. The Liberal numbers have not improved. Conservatives still very much in the lead. So what are you watching out for between now and Parliament's return in September?
In August, if the Prime Minister decides that he's going to have to go, because I think if it stays past August, he's going to have to stay. Because the time frame is too late to be able to call a leadership convention, say in December, and then you hobble the new leader going into an election campaign. So I think if he's going to do anything, if he's going to take not a walk in the snow, but a dive in the lake at Harrington Lake, he's going to be. It seems to me it has to be in August, and if we go past August, then I think we'll watch the Liberals go down in flames with Mr. Trudeau as leader.
Look, I don't hear not a peep about him leaving. So what I'm going to be watching for is what other potential leadership candidates are doing on the barbecue circuit. To what extent are their nascent campaigns kind of really starting to bubble now and kick into gear? There was a time last summer when a little bit of that was going on, and then it was shut down with the cabinet shuffle, among other things, and people were shuffled around. So I'm going to be watching this summer sort of what movement do we see on that? What signals are there that, maybe people aren't waiting for him to stick around and make his decision. Maybe the elbows might come up.
Mm-hmm. Joël-Denis?
I think I'll be watching, like Bob, whether Mr. Trudeau will announce in August that he stays or leaves. My sense is that his final decision has not been made up, and he will make his final decision after he comes back from his July vacation. And then he will, I think, make clear either he stays or he goes. And that's, to me, like Bob, I think that's the latest he can go. August is the deadline for him to stay or to go.
Yeah, well,
and there's no sign in any polls that anybody else, by the way, will do better. That maybe the Liberals are in such dire straits in public opinion that nobody can bring them back from the brink. It's not clear to me who that person would be.
Yeah, although, you know, and quickly with the time, so really quick response on this one, though. There is still, you know, a day, a week, a month, their eternity in politics. Is it possible for Trudeau to turn it around?
I think it's. I don't think it's
2025?
possible for him, but I don't think he should rule out the Liberal Party. If you get a new leader, a leadership race sparks a lot of interest. People begin to focus on who these people are going to be, and whoever gets elected usually has a bit of a honeymoon. So it's, you know, then you can contrast somebody. The poison of Trudeau is out of the system. And then you can contrast somebody against Mr. Poilievre. So it's a possibility the Liberals could at least hold the Conservatives to a minority government or win another minority government in that kind of a scenario.
Okay. Very quickly, if you want to add anything to
no,
that?
that kind of...
Okay. Well, from my conclusion of this is, one, thank you for this, all the spring session and all the spring sitting, and I look forward to perhaps reconvening in August if something happens in August. So Bob Tonda.
I'm going to book off August.
Yeah, I know. Last week in August, I'm in Quebec City, just saying. But anyways, thank you for this. Have a great summer. We'll be in conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah.